Today, I want to begin with something that should never be forgotten. The men and women who served in Afghanistan, many of whom never came home. Hundreds of service members lost their lives. Thousands more returned with injuries that permanently changed their lives. Behind every number is a family, a story, and a sacrifice that cannot be undone. That is why recent comments made by former President Donald Trump have caused such strong reactions, not just among politicians, but among veterans, military families, and people across the country. When statements are made that appear to downplay the role or sacrifices of NATO allies in Afghanistan, the response is immediate and emotional. Because for those who were there, this isn't politics. It's personal. The comments were made during a media interview, where NATO allies were described as having stayed back from the front lines. Words like these have sparked anger, sadness, and frustration, especially among families who lost loved ones while fighting alongside American forces. Many relatives of fallen soldiers say these remarks reopen old wounds. Some have publicly called for an apology, saying that leadership comes with responsibility, and that respect should never be optional. From a broader perspective, this moment highlights a deeper issue. How we talk about war, sacrifice, and alliances matters. The United States did not fight alone in Afghanistan. British forces, Canadian troops, Danish, Dutch, Norwegian, and other NATO allies were deployed in some of the most dangerous regions of the country. These were not symbolic deployments. These were frontline missions. In many cases, troops from smaller nations faced casualty rates that were proportionally as high, or even higher, than those of larger militaries. They operated with fewer resources, smaller units, and enormous risk. Yet, they stood shoulder to shoulder with American forces. Veterans who served during that time often describe a deep sense of brotherhood. On the battlefield, nationality fades away. What remains is trust, the knowledge that the person next to you will protect you, just as you will protect them. This is why dismissive language cuts so deeply. For many who served, Afghanistan was not about politics or headlines. It was about duty. It was about protecting the person beside you. And it was about believing that the sacrifices being made had meaning. Some defenders of the former president argue that not all NATO countries contributed equally. And that is true to an extent. Different nations had different rules, restrictions, and political pressures. But acknowledging that complexity does not justify ignoring the sacrifices of those who did fight. War is not measured only by numbers. It is measured by deployment size, mission risk, and the conditions soldiers face on the ground. A unit of 100 soldiers taking heavy casualties can experience devastation equal to a much larger force. And for those inside that unit, the loss is absolute. This is why many veterans say the conversation should never be reduced to statistics alone. Another layer of this debate is leadership. Presidents and world leaders are not just policymakers. They are symbols. Their words shape how history is remembered. They influence how families process grief, and they affect how current service members feel about the missions they are asked to carry out. Strong alliances require honesty, but they also require respect. NATO, despite its flaws, has been one of the most significant military alliances in modern history. It is built on shared defense, shared intelligence, and shared sacrifice. The United States benefits enormously from this alliance. from overseas bases, intelligence networks, and strategic positioning that would be impossible to maintain alone. Walking away from that partnership would not just be symbolic, it would be costly. Experts point out that while Europe has increased its defense spending in recent years, the alliance remains interdependent. Security in today's world is not isolated. Threats are global, and so are the responses. This is why comments that appear to minimize Allied contributions raise concerns about the future of cooperation. That said, many analysts caution against overreacting to individual statements. Policy decisions matter more than sound bites. Still, words leave an impact, especially on those who lived the reality behind them. For veterans, hearing their service questioned can feel like a betrayal. For families of the fallen, it can feel like erasure. And for those currently serving, it can create uncertainty about how their sacrifices will be remembered. At its core, this debate is not just about NATO or Afghanistan. It is about how societies honor service, how they remember loss, and how leaders speak about those who were willing to give everything. History shows that alliances endure not because they are perfect, but because they are grounded in shared experience. When that shared history is forgotten or dismissed, trust begins to weaken. As the conversation continues, one thing remains clear. The sacrifices made in Afghanistan were real. They were shared, and they deserve to be acknowledged. Without politics, without distortion, and without disrespect. Because honoring sacrifice is not about agreeing on policy, it is about recognizing humanity. And when that recognition is lost, everyone loses.